Superman comes out next year, 2025, which is steadily approaching. And obviously, at the moment, they're filming. So, as is usual, there's some set photos popping up here and there, giving us a little bit of a clue as to what to expect going into this film. We get our first look at Lex Luthor. We've got our first look at Superman as Clark Kent, which is, we'll have to talk about that because there's a lot of thoughts that I have about that. We get Mr. Terrific, some shots at Mr. Terrific, and Lois Lane, and a few other things. First things first, let's look at our friend Nicholas Hoult playing Lex Luthor. We've got some shots of him, obviously some battle damage, so it's nice to know he's going to be getting his getting into some fights. We don't know what the context is, but he's got some bloodied head there. The thing that strikes me is there's a bald cap. He's got that little makeup bald cap thing that you get for actors who don't want to shave their hair, but he has shaved his hair. I don't know if this is just because they're wanting to put some bloody patches on him and it's just easier to just do a bald cap with it, but I imagine having to shave your head every day is probably full on for the character and probably get a bit over it after a while, but no context as to what he's wearing underneath that. We don't know anything there yet, but interested to see how that plays out. Not too much to talk about there, but there you go. We've got a bloody bald head, bald cap. The next thing that we've got that I wanted to look at here was the shots of Mr. Terrific and Superman. So we obviously had the reveal of Superman's suit, which I loved. It was controversial, it seemed, for a lot of people, saying that this is terrible and I can't believe he's wearing underpants again and all this kind of stuff. But I actually really loved it because that image was telling a story. But the suit, I was kind of like, yeah, it's a suit, But the more I've kind of seen the suit in these set photos, the more I've actually come to like it. It is so different from the usual because all those Superman suits and all the superhero suits we see these days are just like skin tight. Feel like they've been vacuum sealed onto the actors, it looks cool. It's like super defined in their muscles and stuff. But when you look at it like practically, I mean, this kind of looks like, it almost reminds you of like a biker jacket, almost like the fit. It's a little bit baggy at parts. It's not super baggy, but it's enough that the material has some movement in it. And I actually really love that because it kind of feels different. It feels almost grounded in a way. Like it's not super Hollywood. It's just a suit that he's wearing that is Superman. I like that. I've come to really like it as I've seen this. Yeah, I'm a fan of it. And it's pretty bright as well. And people are like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not too phased if it's bright or not as bright, but it's pretty bright in these shots. And they're not really accurate to what they'll look like in the film because they do a lot of film grading and stuff. Color grading, I mean. But, I mean, I'm a fan. I think I'm a fan. But what really interests me is Mr. Terrific. Exactly the same. He looks exactly the same as the images I've seen of him in the comics. I don't know much about the character, but I really love how this looks. Like that black on his face, that shaping of that T for terrific, the shaping of the face, and the look, I think is fantastic. I love it. But they're really doing comic accurate. And this brings up for me, when I saw this, brings up for me gives me a lot of excitement in this new DC gun universe, right? Because the struggles I've had in the past, for example, with Batman, my favorite superhero character is Batman. I've loved him since I was a kid. And I've loved the films that they've brought up with him. But since Christopher Nolan came out with his much needed Batman reboot and established this character as this almost real world character, very practical, even though it's not practical, it's, but as far as you could do his character, it's as based and practical as possible. And I loved it. But the one thing I always felt was like, you couldn't see Clayface in that world. You couldn't see a supernatural force in this world. It was always going to be like gangsters and the drive behind the narrative and all those kind of things that made it interesting. But it meant that you had to almost exclude characters that I came to love through the comic books and honestly through the Arkham Knight games, the visualization of Mr. Freeze, and these characters just had no place in this world. You got now Robert Pattinson's Batman and the Matt Reeves trilogy that he's creating. And that isn't as grounded, I feel, as the Dark Knight was. I could see potentially them introducing characters like that, but looking at the trailer for the HBO Max Penguin series and thinking about that and how it's just like a gangster story, you know, like there's not as much room there for the fantastical. What I love about Mr. Terrific here is this is definitely outlining the fantastical elements. Like to expect someone to put something like that on every time they go out to fight crime or do whatever it is he's doing as Mr. Terrific. That's just like a bit of a bonkers thing, but it's kind of what makes the comics so charming. And it's difficult sometimes adapting comics as is to film, which is why often the narrative has to support that. But it makes me really excited because it feels like I'm going to see the comic books in real life, in film. For me, that is just the coolest thing. I can't wait to kind of see how this plays out, and as a result, how other characters like Wonder Woman, Batman, Mr. Freeze, the Riddler, Brainiac, whatever these characters are that come up in the upcoming universe, they're going to be basically ripped from the pages from what I can see here. I want that. And that's surprisingly, that is so different from what's been done before, because you want to have something that's different. Doing it exactly the same as the comics have portrayed these characters is different. So that's awesome. So the next thing we kind of had pop up here is there's a little bit of like video footage of a scene where Superman has been captured. He's been handcuffed, which we've seen before in the Man of Steel. But now he's been captured by a group of, look like armed forces and a big, buff, towering, black-suited character who we have no idea who he is. There's lots of speculation about this. People saying it's the Doomsday containment suit, or it's Bizarro's kind of mix thing that they did with him and his character. We don't know, but speculations galore. You do need some kind of character to come in there who's going to be able to go head-to-head with Superman. And there's a lot of characters that exist in the comics that could do that, and it'd be interesting to see who this happens to be. I've heard some people saying that this is Ulysses. He's kind of like a real strong force to take on Superman, and they've had battles in the comics before, so maybe him. Some people are saying characters from the Authority. Rick Flag Sr., who's going to be in Creature Commandos, I believe, but he's appearing here and taking on some kind of force here. So I don't know what the story is here. I mean, we can kind of assume that maybe Superman's been painted as a villain, or these guys are the bad guys and they're taking charge, or there's some kind of overarching authority kind of figure that's imposing some hearing on him. So that's all going to be interesting to see how that plays out. We'll have to keep an eye out for that. The last thing I wanted to chat about is we had the reveal of Clark Kent. Now, traditionally, I mean, we've seen Clark Kent before. It's Superman with a bit more of like an untidy hairstyle. He's got the glasses, and people are like, well, don't know who that is. Can't be Superman because he's wearing glasses and his hair's a bit messy. And people are like, well, it's a bit unbelievable that that's the case. But, justifiably in the comics, they've presented him in such a way where he presents his demeanor, his physicality changes. And that influences what people perceive in him. It's almost believable that, you can't ever imagine that this could be the strong force of Superman. But they have really done all they could to hide the fact that he is Superman as Clark Kent. Because what they've done is they've done this wig-looking thing. I can't express to you what it feels like to look at this. As someone who has curly hair, kind of mixed curly hair, it's like straight at the back and curly at the front. It's just like a complete mess. But understanding the struggles of curly hair, this is very believable. As like someone who just wakes up and decides to be like, I'm just going to go to work like this. It doesn't look like Superman, right? You wouldn't think this guy would be Superman, but this is a very strong choice. This is like saying this guy's looking like he just came off of a TikTok, tutorial on how to catch marshmallows in your mouth or something. I don't know. Like this is very strong. We'll have to see what it plays like in the movie, but I can see why they might do this. But this is really strong. I don't know if I'm a fan, to be honest. I think a little bit restrained, not so much like hanging in the face, like a little bit more restrained than that is probably like there's a midpoint between afro and sleek. But hey, it's not the end of the world. As long as these characters good, that's really what really matters at the end of the day. But this is like I said, strong choice. Thanks for watching, guys. Leave your comments below and let me know what you think of Black Noir, who his character could be, and also what do you think of Clark Kent's pom pom. Have a wonderful, fantastic, lovely day.